We're back. It's been 2 weeks?
Couple weeks, anyways.
Weeks.
Yeah, little hiatus.
So as promised, we have our favorite toys here.
Yeah.
We decided we would do a show and tell. And then after this, we have one more episode and then another break. just we can't give you guys too much at once.
Yeah, we like to leave them wanting more.
Yeah, it's like drugs, you know? The doctor says you can have just a little bit. It's a little dose, and then after that, you know.
I was thinking cotton candy, you know, like.
Oh, I always think drugs.
Right.
Always.
Right.
Just
Depends where your mind
it's the
goes.
teenage mindset. So I've done my other show a couple times, so people have seen lots of me, but they haven't seen lots of you. So how about you start off first?
All right, I actually suggested the toy episode just because it was a huge part of my being a big fan of Star Wars because, like I say, I grew up with the original movies and
These
grew
are
up.
some original toys.
Yeah, grew up
Love
with
these
the
things.
original toys. So just to show a little bit, these things have been through the war, by the way, too. So this X-wing would go into like, you know, full X-wing mode before it got dropped down the stairs a bunch of
I
times.
was gonna say that looks like now it has like Tourette's.
Yeah. Yes.
Shaking.
Yeah, sort of dropping off a little bit there, and then there's a little button behind, so it's sort of cool. Like it's still.
Oh, that's cool.
The R2 you'd push that down to make it go into the X-wing formation, and then this little thing behind would snap it back down. There's another blue button at the back that would that'd make like a laser sound that would light this little thing up here, and
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, so you're doing a little battle.
From the original movies, I always had one question about the X-wings.
Mm-hmm.
What made it so much better to be to spread the wings apart? I never got that. Like that looks a lot more like sleek and aerodynamic. They're like, spread it out.
I think this was for like speed, like for long distances or whatever. And then I'm not an aerodynamics engineer, but I would assume the theory would be that they were more maneuverable. I would think for like short range combat with those things out. It would give you more like on the turn, you'd have more wing surface to maneuver, I'm guessing.
We should get a scientist.
Plus they
in.
looked awesome.
Yeah, it did look freaking awesome. We should get scientists in to explain it to us.
I really like.
Wasted
I'm
their time.
assuming that these things aren't aerodynamically sound, or else there would have been people who built them by now and flew them. I would think, right? Like
I would love if WestJet's new planes looked like X-wings.
Oh my God, I would fly all the time. Yes, I might actually try to become a pilot.
Oh yeah, that'd be freaking awesome. And then this one, which as Team Empire, I've fallen in love with this thing.
Yeah, this was sort of, like I said to you before, this was one of my absolute prized possessions. Obviously, Vader's iconic ship from A New Hope that figures hugely in that final scene. And yeah, so just a few highlights of this piece here. So you could like open up the top right like that.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's a little seat area for the figure to actually sit right in there. Again, there was a little laser here at the front. I believe you would push, there's a button on the back here, so you could push that to do the laser, I think. There was also something you could do where the wings would, is this gonna work?
Oh.
The wings would pop off, and you would
That's cool.
do that like in a battle to be like, okay, I took out your ship. Of course, I don't know why they did it for Vader's ship, because no one's gonna take him out, so, and he usually won. So yeah, this is just awesome looking. One little unique feature from mine that I just want to show quickly. I talked about this in previous episodes. If you look down here, you can see this hook right here. And that is, my dad put that in.
Oh, that's how they hung it from the ceiling.
Yeah, I had that attic with this sort of barn ceiling thing. My dad strung these up using fishing lines and a little wooden pole on the end and a bunch of hooks. And so I could lower them down in the morning and play with them, and then at night I'd put them away and pull them up, and they'd be sitting there.
That's parenting done right. That's awesome.
Yes, I literally remember sitting in my bunk bed and like looking at all the ships hanging up there and picturing the battle going on and everything. So.
I don't think I'd ever go to sleep. I'd probably get distracted looking at them.
It was.
I want to play now. I don't want to go to sleep. I want to play.
It might have been my parents' like ploy to be like, okay, this will make it easier to get them into bed or get Josh into bed at least, anyways. Yes.
Oh, Luke Skywalker.
Luke's down.
Luke's down. And then I brought my toy that I talked about Was it last week? Last week I talked about it, or was it the week before that?
Yeah.
Basically, it's the I want to say Geonosian. It's not Geonosian.
Gamorrean.
Gamorrean, that's the word. Gamorrean guard. I always call them Jabba the Hutt's pigs.
That works too.
Yeah, it had a helmet.
I think we
And
talked about
lost
this.
it.
It was like Sand People to Tusken Raiders as like Gamorrean guards to like pig dudes or whatever kind of
It's
thing.
galactic racism.
Yes, exactly.
It's sad that there's so much racism towards pigmen in the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
But I remember like I did a video so you can see up closer, and it will probably be up on the screen either before I'm speaking right now or right now. I don't know. I'm not editing it right now.
We'll see.
Trick. Media is all a lie. Anyway, so you can't really see it in the video, and I think maybe it was just my childhood imagination because it doesn't look like it anymore. But I remember used to seeing like slobber. I guess you can kind of see it on his chin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit, and
It's
like
like shiny there, kind of.
yeah, and like of course his skirt's like actual fur.
Yeah, like real fur. It's definitely detailed for a kid's toy.
Yeah,
Like,
and I remember seeing this, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the most best thing ever because I couldn't do grammar. I still can't.
all the little like details on the shoulder
Yeah.
armor and everything like that. Like,
I never noticed, but he has like little straps.
he's got baby
Strap on.
fat too, and his like elbows and his
Yeah, he's got-
biceps, maybe they could be called. But
He's got bingo wings. He's got bingo wings. He's got sandals, which, so I'm a huge history fan, and I never got this. What do sandals do for you in battle? Like it just seems like a really good way to get your toes chopped off.
it is a little
Kinda-
primitive. I'm thinking like some races seem more advanced generally than others in the Star Wars universe. So maybe
Yeah.
the Gamorreans were more in the Roman times still or whatever, whereas other dudes were wearing space boots and stuff like that. But yeah, you wouldn't think.
A spaceship
Sandals.
comes down, and the guy sitting there with an accent. I can take this guy on. Like, you know that would have been a bad day at work when you show up and they're like, oh, all these people are bounty hunters and have like Jedis and stuff like that, and we're gonna give you an axe. Okay?
Yeah, never bring an axe to a lightsaber fight. That will not go well.
Like, at that point, bravery just becomes stupidity. they weren't doing a good job.
Well, the Gamorreans were all subject to Jedi mind tricks too. They could be like Luke pretty easily overwhelm them walking in there. So they were, I guess, a fairly primitive race generally
Do you
within
think
the Star
it's
Wars
like
universe.
Jabba the Hutt felt bad for them? I was like, I'll give them jobs. Like, you guys can walk around my.
I think Hutt
Right.
being a good, or Jabba being a good businessman would be wanting cheap labor. They were
Yeah.
probably just cheap, affordable labor, and I think they would have been more the effect of like symbolic intimidation as opposed to truly effective fighters. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like it's like a scary
They're big
it's like a
guys.
big dumb bouncer at the door that's like, I'm a little scary or whatever. He obviously
my
didn't care
ass.
about them much because they'll just throw them into
Yeah.
with the what's
And-
it called? The Rancor?
The Rancor.
Rancor. Yeah, just throw them in there, give them a little snack.
Give 'em a little
so
feed.
yeah, they're sort of disposable.
When I played the Lego game, actually, how you beat the Rancor, how you beat the Rancor, is you toss more of these guys down so it will eat it. And I remember I thought even then I was like, this is kind of dark.
You give the Rancor a stomachache.
Like I'm giving them like. Also, do you think if I'm just imagining all these guys staying in like a line, jumping down like a slide?
Right.
This is like fun times above it. They go down and it's like, oh no, it's a giant monster, and they get eaten.
That was one of my, like, just a side note with people like, with people having mixed feelings about Return of the Jedi and stuff. Like, that was another scene, like the final space battle, I feel like is awesome. But that was a scene early on with the Rancor that, like, cemented that movie just being awesome. Because the monster was incredible. The fact that it would just eat, like, good guys, enemies, whatever and stuff. I loved, like, the little dude after it got killed when the guy was, like, its caretaker was, like, sad.
Yeah, he's like, oh no.
He's like, oh man, my pet, like my. That was awesome.
The Rancor was always
Anyways,
the best. Like,
yes,
I
yeah.
used to play, like I mentioned before, and obviously you did as a child, play it with action figures. And I mentioned how we did this. I think I've seen a couple of yours before. I don't know where I have. And I told you that we used to do the Skylark pit. We dig a hole in the sandbox and
That's
throw people in
amazing.
it.
Yes, that is amazing too. I wish I'd thought of that because that's such a good idea. That's such an easy thing. Like just dig a hole in the sand.
Yeah.
You can stick a few sticks in the side for teeth if you want or whatever for
We
tentacles.
never
and-
got to do a barge or anything like that, but you know, we made it work. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then whenever we were at my friend's house, he had a basement that we usually played down in, but he had this bar table thing, like his house had one. So what we'd do is once in a while we would put our action figures up there, or we'd put them upstairs in his room and we'd play up there, and then we would say downstairs was the Rancor pit.
Nice.
And then we would pretend that we were Rancors. So like we'd throw them down, and now looking at it, like those are some big Rancors. So we always were like, yeah, it makes sense. It's great. And I just...
It seemed huge when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed like, yeah.
It was just like, that was when I was a child. I guess more than any movie, Jedi was the one that we always recreated.
And yes, absolutely. There was a lot of things like being played from that. When you say that, like we would play like Starlight Pit, like trying to stay up on something like a balance beam or something like that, or even with these guys, if they fell down, you would say that. And two, like just creating the whole Rancor thing again too. Like that is such an iconic monster, right?
It
like
is.
just out of all the monsters from childhood or whatever, that's sort of one that really comes to the forefront as far as just being like creepy and scary and like, yeah, like, oh my God.
With it being creepy and scary, one thing thinking of it, as long as you don't piss off Jabba the Hutt,
You're good.
you're good. The thing doesn't move. It's just a hole. I guess quicksand. People can die from quicksand.
Yes. Also,
that's also a
too,
thing.
like the Gamorrean Guard didn't necessarily piss off Jabba. You just didn't want to be at the wrong place at the wrong time with Jabba too.
Yeah.
Like gangsters can be somewhat volatile with their emotions. So.
Speaking of characters, do you want to do the character of the day?
Well, I've got a few toy facts. I want to sort of
toy
get
facts. Okay, we'll do that. Toy facts.
Yeah, I did a little like research on the toys.
Wow,
There was
you
some
did.
there was some pretty cool stuff actually.
You did
So.
some, like hardcore research.
So when it's interesting looking back at this stuff because like hindsight is always 20/20, but like originally people were skeptical about Star Wars and the toy lines and whether they would be successful. And I guess they were shopping around the idea for the toy line to a bunch of different companies. There's one company called Megacorp, and it made DC toys, like I'm assuming Batman stuff or whatever, Green Lantern, stuff like that. And it made Star Trek stuff, so a lot of Spocks and.
We can do a little plug here. Actually, He-Man, FauxPop's doing a documentary for He-Man.
Okay.
I don't know the company that did the He-Man toys, but they were at one point offered the He-Man thing, and they turned it down. I mean, they turned down the Star Wars one, and then they took He-Man.
Okay, so similar thing. And those toys, it's interesting because the He-Man toys were much more
Bigger.
substantial.
We
Yeah,
actually
they were way
commented on that.
bigger kind of or whatever. But yeah, and so eventually Kenner was the company that ended up taking it on, and they're now iconic with the like packaging and the Kenner name being up there and stuff. But yeah, when they first, I guess it was so late in the game that they made this deal that Kenner couldn't produce figures right away. And when they first, so in 1978, at Christmas time, Kenner sold people an empty box.
Oh, yeah.
Literally an empty box. And I guess the media totally
IOU.
torched them. Yes, and it was totally like IOU. So now you bought this box, so you are entitled, you got to mail away. There's mail away thing. And when I think about, there used to be like mail away stuff all the time when we were kids. It's crazy. But yeah, so they would buy an empty box, they'd mail away for the figures, and the 4 figures they would get. This is interesting to talk about for maybe a little bit. The figures they would get are Luke Skywalker, of course, R2-D2, Leia, and Chewbacca. And so it's all good guys, and then there's, like, it's interesting.
They didn't do Han or...
They didn't do Han,
C-3PO.
they didn't do C-3PO, right? Like some of those main guys. And it's interesting to me that Leia cracked into that list, and I think that's kind of awesome because she was like a very strong and important character. But just like the contrast, like recently when the toy line came out, I guess like the Rey figures after the new movie came out, the Rey figures were in short supply and people were actually like complaining, and they didn't produce as many as other figures because they thought people aren't going to want to play with a girl action figure. And of course today that creates like the huge controversy, and so it's interesting that Leia was one of these 4 originals.
I think that, and also a contrast, like I remember when I was a kid, the one action figure that I badly wanted, and I had 2 of them, only one was an actually like good version of it, was a C-3PO. I always loved them.
Yes.
And then Darth Vader, and I got a Darth Vader, probably like the year that I stopped playing with action figures, and same with C-3PO, because I always thought they were cool. Those were like my favorites.
Yeah.
And then if you look at action figures now, have you have kids, so you've seen the newer action figures,
Yep.
right?
Oh yeah.
The boxes are so different. Like, it's where ours, like, did you see that they brought back some of the old action figures but bigger?
Yep.
They're collectibles.
Yep.
You look at those boxes, and if you look at the boxes that I had when I was a kid, they're for kids. Like, they were very kiddish, but you look at some of them now, and it's like, that's on the border.
I totally agree. Like, on the border is a good way to say it too, because they still can appeal to kids, but they're clearly sort of made in the packaging for collectors too, or whatever. And even some of the figures, like the figures are bigger now.
Yeah.
They're way heavier. Like, they're really heavy. My daughter got Captain Phasma for her Christmas, and I was like, oh my God, like, you know, you could throw these things across the room or whatever and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, Phasma would put like a hole in the wall, or like, give your buddy like a black eye or cut them or something like that. Like, it's just a different, I don't know. And with nostalgia, you always like what you grew up with. So there's that thing to it. But yeah, the figures they're impressively built. Like, they're
they're very well
made,
built.
But they're much different. Yes.
I've seen them, and I do like how they do now have the packaging for adults.
Right.
Because a kid's going to throw out the packaging, a collector's going to keep the packaging.
Yep.
But the one thing is, because I've been in Walmart once or twice before in my life, it's a couple times lately, and they have the big expensive, like, well, I haven't really looked at the price, but I'm guessing they're expensive, or the big ones, like the ones that you're talking about Captain Phasma and stuff like that.
Right.
And then they do have the smaller ones that are the same size as mine and yours as a kid's, but where mine can bend their elbows and knees and stuff like that, they're going back to these forms where they can't bend their arms or knees, which I remember there was something like that when I was a kid. Usually they were Spider-Man or something like that, and usually they came with a motorbike, and I hated getting those. So I'm like, do they just think kids don't like the elbow joints? That's too much for them now?
And for me, like, as a kid, the other big toy line when I was a kid was G.I. Joe. Right? And a thing that definitely distinguished G.I. Joe figures from Star Wars figures is G.I. Joes could move their elbows and their knees and stuff, and their waists too. And I don't know, like, it was just because of what I was used to or whatever, but I don't know, I found those guys harder to stand up. They just get all twisted around, right?
Yeah,
they'd be
they
like all
harder to stand.
crazy positions and stuff or whatever, but I don't know, I just like the simple, classic Star Wars figures. They were...
It is nice because
I fell in love.
For like lightsaber battles, because I did have a couple of this. I actually have an Obi-Wan and an R2-D2. Both are in my car at the moment, so I don't have them here. But the best part about those ones I found was, especially with I shouldn't say Obi-Wan, Ben Kenobi is Ben. Right. Since his arm didn't move and his hand didn't move, you could do lightsaber battles and you wouldn't have to worry about his hand getting all weird by the end of it.
That's true.
Like, you could just bash these. And with also you saying that you couldn't throw the new ones, these ones, like, yeah, I threw these all the time. Like, that was half the battle. Like, I had this big truck thing that you can usually see up there that I would just, like, run over these action figures with. Like, they went through hell.
Yes, they were not played with gently at all.
Yeah. War is not gentle.
No.
Yeah, this is real. This is real, Mom.
And so going back to some of my facts here, so the toy line, the empty box toy line that started and obviously expanded from there, but it made over $100 million in its first year, and this in 1978. Oh. So there was obviously huge interest. And I found this interesting, like, after Return of the Jedi, the sales for the figures and the toys started to go down, that being the last movie, and there not being anything in the works soon after that coming. And so the last line of these toys was made in 1985. And I would have thought that it was, like, later. I thought they still kept getting produced for a few years to make some sales. But yeah, I guess 1985 was, like, the last year that these toys came out. There was there's been new, you know, with the new
Iteration.
movies, yeah, there's like new generations of toys and everything like that, but that's for the original toy line. And there's still a little bit of interest because in 2015, Star Wars toys sold over $700 million.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, so I think Disney is doing well with their investment. That's 2 years ago, right? And there's no, you know, Rogue One has come out since then. Like there's been a lot.
The one thing that I've always thought has been strange about Star Wars, and luckily for us, it's the case, where I remember when I was a kid, I had an Indiana Jones action figure. And this is a good representation of what I had. I loved Indiana Jones as a kid, but I got that action figure when Crystal Skull came out. It was a terrible movie. But I got it when they redid, like when a new movie came out. I remember that with G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe stopped. Kind of, like you could get some of the old versions, just revamped.
Snake Eyes, I was like,
Yeah.
Snake Eyes was awesome.
And then when the movie came out, they did a huge push of it. For example, it's with every movie that they release the toys when the movie comes out, and then they take them off the shelves. It's been like that. But Star Wars, there's been a huge gap between when the 6 and 7. And between that time, they never stopped producing. Like, they always had action figures. Like, at no point was I ever like, oh, they don't have action figures this week. Like, it was always like a giant section. And like they did have the Clone Wars, but it wasn't like it was just Clone Wars action figures. They still had originals, and even before the Clone Wars, they still had stuff. And it's just Star Wars is the only real movie franchise I can say that about.
And I wonder what the gap was between 1985 and the next toy line that they started to make, because I don't think they waited all the way until Phantom Menace coming out. There was like you say, like Clone Wars or like different like animated series and stuff like that they would put stuff out for us. So there has been just an amazing amount of toys over the years, really. And now it's spiraled with the rebirth of the popularity. I didn't bring it in, but like, you know, there's toasters, there's bath towels, there's like everything, like whatever you want. I've got a Darth Vader and Stormtrooper salt and pepper shaker at my house.
Awesome.
Yeah, my lady got it for me a few years ago, and it's rad. But like you can literally get like any accessory that you want Star Wars related, right?
Star Wars is crazy like that. Like it's never stopped. And one thing I do think is really, I'm a comic book fan. I used to read comic books when I was a kid. I don't know if were you a comic book fan?
No, like spotty. My brother was big time, but not consistently really.
When I was a kid, it was hard to get comics. Like obviously the heyday was done, and nowadays more than any, like you have to go to a big city to find a comic book shop.
Yep.
Star Wars did something really clever because they had comics that were like the expanded universe.
Yes.
But what they did was they would make action figures for the two main characters, and then they would bundle it together and they'd sell that. And that was always the coolest thing. Like you would go to the store and then you'd see that and you'd be like, I want that. I had a white Darth Vader.
Cool. Right.
That was like the most badass thing I ever had was a white Darth Vader.
Well, and with the comics, like they could, like I'm pretty sure they made individual comic series for a lot of the major characters too, right? So it was just a way to expand on those characters' stories and everything like that. And it's essentially another product. You know, if you like Chewie, you can get like Chewie, Han and Chewie comics or whatever. If you like Boba Fett, you can get a whole bunch of Boba Fett comics, droids, same thing.
It's a smart way to do it. Like where most comic books, like they only do the comic, obviously, and it takes like, there's diehard fans, but not everyone's doing it. Where Star Wars was like, kids would love these if we put a toy in with it.
Well, and I guess there was a lot of skepticism originally with the toy line where some people thought it was going to be huge, like George Lucas included, thought it was going to be huge. And then people are like, a bunch of other people are like, no, like these are cheesy, this isn't going to work. And, you know, obviously we know who won that argument.
The other guys. George Lucas was wrong. Star Wars definitely did not take off ridiculously.
Yeah. Who knew?
Yeah. So do you want to do the character of the day? Or do you got more facts?
No. I think we can get to the character of the day.
Do you want to read it or do you want me to read it?
No, you go ahead.
You want me to do it? So the character of the day is Admiral Akbar.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. He is. God, there's a lot of Mons in this, and this is why I try to get you to read it.
There's also, it's funny to me how like I wonder if because calamari is on like almost every menu now at a restaurant or whatever, it's a very common appetizer.
Mon calamari.
Like I wonder if it was like pretty obscure back then, because it just seems kind of cheesy. And anyways, I'm giving something away. I'm like putting the cart before the horse here. Sorry, go ahead.
His species is Mon calamari.
Calamari.
That's great. Even funny if it was like Mon lobster.
Well, it doesn't look like a squid really
No,
either. Like he looks like fishy, obviously.
His head, kinda.
Maybe, I guess, maybe. Like compressed,
yeah.
sort of, like instead of like elongated, like just a short squid, I guess, possibly.
And then, his arms though look like crabs.
Yes.
It's very crabby. He's from Mon Cala. Very creative. Just got rid of Mari. And then he's an admiral, if you didn't know. He fought for the rebellion. He was in his main thing was he was in the Jedi, Return of the Jedi.
The
he wasn't in the Jedi. That'd be awesome if he was a Jedi. Though.
Yeah, it wasn't a Jedi, but had the iconic line of "It's a trap" in Return of the Jedi that is like very well known to any fans of the saga.
In the Clone Wars, because the Clone Wars were great. Akbar protected his home planet against the Separatists. Guess what his home planet's made out of?
Water.
Oh yeah, it's completely underwater. And I looked at this. I haven't seen this episode, but I looked at it, and it looks like Aquaman fighting squids. It looked like something. And then I put his home planet is completely it's located on the outer rim and it's completely underwater. And if you look at their home planet and their costumes, it's funny. I think Admiral Akbar is a character that they should have left obscure and just kind of went like, yeah, he's an admiral. They shouldn't have went this deep into it because then it got kind of strange.
There are some backstories that I feel like just add sort of confusion or sort of unneeded elements to the overall thing. I found it interesting in Rogue One how again Mon calamari species were leading the ships or whatever, right? So I didn't do any specific research into that, but they must have some intelligence as far as either battle and space strategy or just leading a ship, because those are major assets of the rebellion, those ships, right? So they were obviously important people in the rebellion for sure.
I'm not a fishologist or whatever they're called. I don't know what.
Yeah, no.
Marine biologist. That's what
marine
the
biologist,
word is.
Yes.
And I don't know everything about fish, and I'm not going to act like I do. But I must be missing the part that makes them so good at flying spaceships.
I'm trying to wonder how a water planet prepares you for life in a spaceship, but
I guess
maybe
people put astronauts in water to simulate zero G's, but I don't really think, especially also because I don't think if you took a fish out of water and threw it inside of a spaceship, I don't think it'd work out that well. Like it
did for the rebels.
Yeah. Who do you think was the first calamari that went, that thing, I want to get in that giant metal spaceship, and I think we'll be good at that?
They were a pioneer, whoever they were, because then somebody was like, oh my God, you're not just good at swimming, you're totally good at flying the ship or leading, the ship. So
it's like fish out of water. You know when they say fish out of water, apparently that's not a bad thing. Apparently that's a great thing because they can fly spaceships.
Yeah.
They're great at it.
What's that? They pretend that Einstein said that thing about like if you give a fish
if you tell a fish to
climb a tree or something, then it's an idiot.
Yeah, you don't think it's an idiot. Well, guess what? That's wrong, because it will just get in its spaceship.
Yeah, tell
and
it
go
to
the
fly a
top.
spaceship, and you'll see all its talents come out.
Hey, don't tell a fish to climb a tree, but tell it to defeat the Galactic Empire, and it's got it.
Yeah, it'll shine.
It's like this is my calling.
Yeah.
PetSmart just got a lot more like awesome.
Yes,
Going
yeah,
around-
that's
going
true.
in
I'm gonna
like-
have to take a close look at those tanks.
Walk in like, oh, you guys are war heroes.
Yeah, any
So
calamari
proud.
in here? Do you guys have calamari?
Sushi bars got really dark. Do you think that's the Empire's new favorite spot? Like he's like, let's go for sushi.
I want it.
I'll
Yeah,
take
they
the
probably
calamari.
love feasting. There'd be certain people that would love feasting on calamari. I'd imagine with all the strife they've caused the Empire. It'd be
They got calamari. Maybe that's why they learned how to fly spaceships. Is the Empire didn't have Taco Day; they had Calamari Day.
well, yeah,
And
and you can
people
make
got angry.
calamari. I went to a restaurant that had calamari tacos just the other day. So you could, maybe they were harvesting
That's what
them
it
for
was.
food or something like that, and they decided to join the rebellion to fight back.
They're like,
It's
what are
possible.
they gonna do? They're stupid. Oh, they got spaceships. That would be the biggest surprise I think possible.
That would be shocking.
Yeah,
that
just,
would
oh,
be shocking.
I was wrong. Well, thank you for watching this episode. We'll be back next week for our final episode for a bit, and then we'll be back again after September. So thank you for listening to us talk about our toys as a child.
Yeah, maybe dig out some of your toys or a buddy that you know, see if they have any stuff laying around, get a little
Yeah.
nostalgic with it, and have some fun going through that old stuff.
Yeah, the toys are always fun to play with, even when you're an adult. Just, you know what, go. I'm sure no one will judge you for playing with toys. So just go in your room, lock yourself in there, and play with toys for an hour.
You can make like this sound like pew pew, all that fun stuff, right? And
Your wife's a lucky woman. I almost said a lucky man.
yeah.
I almost messed that up.
And as always,
May the force be with
may
you.
the force be with you.
See you guys next week.